My name is Chanel Scott, and you're watching Second Chance with Johneri'O Scott.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Second Chance with Johneri'O Scott. Of course, it's me, your host, Johneri'O Scott. But the attention is not on me today. I have this amazing guest, Miss Chanel N. Scott, who is just really taking media and changing the conversation when it comes to relationships. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing well. We have you on, and listen, I have been trying to get this interview with this beauty. She is definitely out here doing your thing. I remember when we first met, I want to say probably 3-4 years ago.
It was 2018.
2018.
Yes.
And community was just getting started, and you were just telling me, the backdrop of the story, and look at you now. So, before I get started, I like to always ask my guests who they are, because we know how social media can portray. So, who is Chanel?
I'm a lover of God. I'm a person of purpose. I'm a person who's chasing her destiny.
I like that. And in chasing your destiny, you first have to find out what it is.
Absolutely.
So how did you find your destiny?
I tapped into destiny purpose through hurt and pain. I experienced a tremendous church hurt, and I didn't have an outlet to speak openly about it because it was in church.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to Atlanta, I wanted to create a platform where I could speak freely and create a space for others who had had similar experiences as I had to be able to speak and talk about their relational pain.
Right. How was it though, like getting that, first for one, making that change, and then changing that mental?
It was extremely difficult. But one of the things that I had to do is God literally undressed me down to the bare bones, and He allowed me to see me the way He saw me, and I had a lot of cleaning up to do. I had to take accountability for my part in it. That's the first step to healing, is to acknowledge your wrongdoing. Like, we can't worry about what someone else has done, but we have to correct the behavior, but when we've operated out of either dysfunction or just inappropriate.
So what do you know about second chances?
Wow. What do I know about third, fourth, fifth,
Right, that part.
6th, 7th, 8th chances? I mean, God is amazing. The beautiful thing about it is when you make mistakes, it's all a part of God's divine plan. So even though, you may not know it, and I always encourage people who are going through a process, don't give up, stay the course, because it's all a part of His plan, and it's all a part of Him unveiling and giving you an opportunity to step into purpose. Like, I had to go through that in order to do what I'm doing. There was no other way. Because I needed the experiences, and I needed to be able to speak to something, right? If you don't have experience, you can't speak to it. No one's not going to listen to you if you've never had that experience. I don't want someone who's never had relational hurt talking to me, because you can't identify with my pain. Right? So He allowed me to go through that process so that I could speak to those people that He has connected to me.
And so that your testimony can be a testament. And I tell people all the time, we ask God for, God, I want to be on billboards. I want to be on here. I want to speak to people. And He's looking like, okay, so I'm going to give you, but just know this process ain't going to be what you
Most
think
people
it is.
don't think, they just look at the glitz and the glam. They don't know what goes on in private. They don't know about the private struggle. They just see the public, the notoriety, people celebrating you and loving you, but they don't know what you go through in private to be able to even show up on a public platform in that way.
Right. So you created a ministry that came out of, the hurt and, the growth. Did you know that you would have been where you are now?
No. How could I? I didn't have the capacity to be able to see this far ahead. God gives it to us in steps. He doesn't give it all to us at one time, right? Because we have to make the first, He makes the first move, but then we have to follow it up with the next move. But if He gave all of this to me at once, I wouldn't be able to handle it. So every time I made a step in the direction that He was guiding me, He would give me more. He would reveal more. He would show me how to sharpen things up, what to change, what to keep. Where He wanted to go, the right people. He connected me to the right people at the right times to provide the provision that I needed in order to get to this place.
And this place, you guys, that we are talking about is community. I mean, it started from the live discussions, and then Fox Soul, and then now the bigger production of these live discussions. So how did community come about?
Well, the ministry was, again, it was derived from the church hurt and not being able to speak freely about what I was experiencing in terms of being hurt, desiring a husband, it not happening at the pace that I wanted it to happen, and me having experienced a church hurt was a leadership in church. And so I wanted to create a space where I could speak about it. I also wanted to understand the male perspective and just how men think, you know. I wanted to, ask those hard questions that we typically don't get the answers to when our relationships are going awry. Most people shut down, or either you're afraid or you can't deal with the truth. So ministry is an opportunity to really ask those hard questions to men who have had similar experiences, and it also gives them an opportunity to speak freely without being judged or beat up on, but to really just express how because they have feelings too, men have feelings too,
we got feelings.
Right, and so this is an opportunity for them to share as well.
What have you learned in this whole process after starting community? What have you learned about yourself?
I have learned that I've been doing relationship wrong, right? I'm approaching it wrong out of my own insecurities, and skipping steps. A lot of times we go right to, okay, I like you, okay, so we're in a relationship, rather than developing that foundation of friendship and getting to know that person, vetting that person, finding out that person's their history, their likes and dislikes, finding out if you guys are even compatible. They can be attractive all day long, well-spoken, all these things that you want from an exterior, but if you guys are not compatible, it's not going to work.
Listen, my mom always say, you have this first 6 months to push every button to really get to know who this other person is. And my issue was putting the cart before the horse. And I think a lot of us have that issue of, like you said, we dating, 2 or 3 months, then it's like, oh yeah, we together. Let's start planning. And we doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's all wrong. A lot of times for me, I would do it out of insecurity because I didn't want that person to date other people. I still don't subscribe to the whole idea of multiple dating. But I do subscribe to the idea of being friends. As long as we're friends and we have healthy boundaries and we operate in that space, then you could date whoever you want. But the moment that we cross those lines and we have communication and we talk about taking it to the next level, then okay, so now we got to have a conversation about this,
So in that, what have you learned since starting community about relationships?
Relationships are fluid. I mean, relationships are hard.
Girl!
Because it's the merging of two histories. And the older you get, it doesn't get any easier because people get set in their ways. They have their own experiences. We're socialized differently. So it's all about just connecting with someone who you are compatible with. It doesn't, you do want someone who's attractive and have all of the bells and whistles that you wrote down on your list. And that's important because God can do it. But you still have to take your time to really get to know that person. So what steps or tips of advice would you give someone when they come to you and say, girl, I'm trying to talk to this new person, we just starting with two weeks in. What advice would you give them? The most important thing before you even get to that point is knowing your purpose and knowing who you are in God. Knowing what your God-given assignment is, knowing what your purpose is, because people are going to hurt you, people are going to disappoint you because we're human, right? But if you know who you are, if you know your purpose, then it kind of just like, okay, I'm disappointed, but it's not going to kill me. My heart's not going to be broken because I know who I am. So I've found contentment in who I am, so I'm not living vicariously through you and trying to attach my value to you because I don't love myself. So the most important thing is tapping into your purpose and loving yourself and finding contentment and just being with you. The moment you are okay with being with you, then that person will come along.
Good. That's good. Listen, you guys. Again, as I stated before, we have the amazing Chanel with us today, you guys, and we're just talking all things community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm going to give you one word, and tell me what comes to mind. Love.
Love encompasses everything. God is love.
God is love.
God can be who you want him to be, who you want him to be. he is love, you know. He doesn't just give love, but he is that.
Yes. Grace.
Woo, grace. I mean, I wouldn't even be here without God's grace and mercy. His grace is what allows me to sit before you today. His grace is what allowed me to not self-destruct, right? In the process, as a human being, we can often look at what's before us and get caught up in what we don't see. But it's his grace and his mercy that allows us to move through that process.
And one more word. I want to talk about true partnership.
True partnership. That's important. A lot of people approach relationships one-sided about what can you do for me, right? It's not about what you can do for me. It's about what we can do for each other. It's about true partnership and building with someone. It's not like in the old days. I know people still have this old mentality of, you know, and the man is the provider. But I do believe that if we are in partnership, we can build together. And we decide what that looks like in terms of provision. Because, I mean, it could be a situation where the woman may make more money than the man, but we determine, you know, and we still hold him in regard. He is the man, he is the leader.
Yeah.
But partnership is about building together.
Do you think, I like that, when you were talking, this came to mind. Do you think, you know, in the scripture they said women should be submissive. Do you think that can affect a relationship?
I'm going to submit to anyone who's submitted to God. If he's submitted to God, it will be nothing for me to submit to him, right? Because the moment I say I do, then I've agreed to allow this man to lead me, which means I have vetted him, which means that I know he's submitted to God. I'm not trying to figure this out after I say I do, right? I've agreed to do this. We have a covenant now.
We have that covenant. I like that. I like it. So you have your book out, Relationship Matters. Talk about it. How did it come about?
It chronicles all of my various experiences and, you know, during the process of me really learning who I was in the context of relationship, to tapping into purpose and just understanding my own idiosyncrasies. I chronicle like all the crazy experiences, but what I do is I lace it with practical principles. Like, I've gone through enough relational hurt, relational dysfunction for anyone. So if you read the book, then it's no reason why you should make those same mistakes. Like, because I've laid it out. You can even think through the context of your own relationship as you're reading my story, and then I'm showing you what not to do. I'm making it practical. I'm giving you practical steps on how not to make the same mistakes that I've made.
How was that mentally, you know, because I wrote a book and, you know, when it comes to writing it down, you revisit those things. So
revisit.
How was that?
Rough, embarrassing.
Oh my goodness.
Embarrassing, because I started at the beginning. I started at the time that I was old enough to date. So very embarrassing, very like, how in the world, like, what were you thinking? You know, but it was because I didn't know who I was. I mean, no one can teach you this. You gotta seek God for that, and that takes time. You know, my parents couldn't teach me how to do that. They had their own issues. You know, so I talk about the different experiences that I had starting at the age of 15 years old. You know, and
that's a lot
the
to
mistake.
revisit.
There's a lot to revisit, and I put it out there. It was important for me to chronicle it because I don't need no one else telling my story.
I know that's right.
So I told it first. So you take the sting out of it when you put it out there first. I don't know where God is taking me, but I don't want people to come back and say, well, you know, whatever happened. No, but it's in the book, you know. So I was very transparent, very honest, but I also gave principle, because I've worked through a lot of this stuff as well. So I talk about that, and I make it very practical on how not to make the same mistakes that I've made.
Wow. Yeah, because when I was reading it, I was like, yo, you are really unpacking a lot. But it's, if people focus, hopefully y'all don't focus on that and y'all focus on.
Well, it's entertaining. Don't get it twisted.
No,
it's got a little bit of everything.
Yes.
It's entertaining, but you also gain wisdom, perspective. So yeah, I don't want them to be bored reading the story. So it's definitely very entertaining, very juicy, but at the same time, you glean principles on how not to make the same mistakes that I've made. Absolutely.
So now, looking back, what advice would you give Chanel from 5 years ago?
You know what? It's so, like, not to try to attach your value. Like, you gotta figure out I'm always gonna go back to purpose.
Yeah.
You got it, because what I have found that ever since I've been operating in purpose, like I still get my feelings hurt, but it's like, okay, whatever.
Right.
You know, it does. I don't get stuck. Right? There was a time where I got stuck in life and I lost everything.
Wow.
Because it didn't work in my favor, and I just couldn't understand. Like I grappled with God on that. Like, Lord, I thought you told, I miss God. You know, so I had to work through that. Of, you know, so I don't play with it now. You know, so I just, like, for me, it's just important. It's so important, because when I was young, I thought purpose was a cliche word. I was like, what is that? You know, until I sat under leadership that taught me practically what it is and how to tap into it, like to do self-discovery and figure out what is it that I'm supposed to be really doing. Am I supposed to be getting up every morning and just going to a job that's unfulfilling and boring, and I'm not utilizing my gifts or nothing, right? So I was taught how to look within, tap into those gifts, and how to execute a plan and you know, manifest what God had put on the inside of me. So I would think the most important is just knowing your self-worth, knowing your value, knowing your purpose, knowing your assignment before you even think about even engaging in a relationship. Because if not, you're going to always be looking for them to make you happy and make you fulfilled, and that's never going to happen.
Yes.
And then also to understand that your partner, that person on the other side, is also on a journey of self-discovery too. So how can they fulfill you if they don't even know who they are? So you got to come whole. You got to come whole, because otherwise it's not going to work. They got to come whole. It's not going to work if you don't. You're just going to keep making, it's going to be an ongoing cycle. You're going to, it's just, like I'm telling you, I have seen this, it's like the long playing version of a record. It's like different person, same scenario, just over and over and over again, because you haven't done the work.
You haven't done the work. Listen, y'all better do the work. You know, look within yourself, make sure you have you together before trying to embrace somebody else.
Absolutely. Because people say you got to get you together, but what I find is most people don't know what that means. They don't know how to practically get themselves together. They think, okay, maybe if I abstain from certain behaviors, then that's me getting me together. But see, I even did that. I was abstinent for 8 years, no sex, no dating, and I'm like, I'm good. I've done the work, so I thought, and God put me right in a situation that brought all of that stuff back to the surface that I thought I had dealt with because I hadn't dated in 8 years, and I really had to do the work this time.
What does doing the work may look like for somebody?
So it's like for me, I'm a believer. Okay, so I'm a student of the word. That's a part of my regimen. That's a part of my life. Anything that you see outwardly in terms of my show, my success, all of that was derived straight from the word of God. I'm telling you, everything I do, I get divine instruction from God. You got to find you a leader who know how to teach practically, though, so that you can understand the language, and God will give you understanding. But you got to get under someone who can teach you how to do this. So that's it. I don't have nothing else. That's how I did it. You know, they try to make it complicated. It's not complicated. That was the work, because that's hard. That takes self-discipline to sit down and study the word on a daily basis, on a continuum. Like, that's a part of my regimen, though. That's it. Like, I don't, like, my week ain't even complete if I don't do that. You're gonna be walking around here empty. You ain't gonna have nothing to give nobody if you ain't full. And he's the only one who can fill you. No person can fill you. He's the only one that can fill you.
Yeah, y'all, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And going back to relationship matters, when someone get this copy, what should they expect? What are you feeding them? What are they digesting?
Well, I mean, like I said, it talks about practical principles on how not to make some mistakes that I've made. But I feel like if a person is having relational issues, or they can't seem to get it together, or their relationships are not working, I feel like by the time they finish reading this book, they should be able to engage in a healthy relationship. I really believe this is a part of doing the work. Because see, I've done the work for you guys, and I put it in the book. So now you got to do is just read. But this is a starting point. This is not the end all be all, but this is a good start to, you know, once you get done, you're like, okay, so I see this differently. And I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to make sure I'm good.
It's a good therapy session.
It's a good therapy session. It make you really look at you, because my experiences are going to cause you to think, wow, I had that experience, and I see where I messed up, and so now this is what I have to do differently next time.
So we are now worldwide. We are on the TV. You can check us out right there on Fox. So we know that, you know, God, it was divine, but how did you get there?
Wow. I mean, God. I mean, there was a young lady I was working with at the time. She was a very ambitious young lady. She wanted to be a publicist, and she wasn't, in my opinion, she wasn't quite ready, but obviously she was more ready than I thought. This was during COVID. She and I was working together, and she knew what I wanted. She knew I wanted to be on TV, and she did this outside of me. I can't even take credit for it, but she started sending correspondence to all the different networks, just saying, hey, she put a treatment together, you know, this
she
was
was
where
working.
she was working, she wanted to do it, and then Foxhole was new at the time, they were brand new, and when she sent the treatment, it piqued their interest, and so we set up a meeting, I pitched it to the head of the network. He was like, it's COVID, I really would like to see this in the studio, and we not doing that right now, like we're doing Zooms. I'm like, what? Like, wait, oh my God. You know, so I was like, I'll do a Zoom, and he was like, no, I just really think, you know, it would be good in the studio, so I was like, okay. And so he was like, this was like September of 2020, he was like, let's revisit it in January 2021, so I was like, okay. January 2021 came, nothing. I would shoot him DMs on Instagram. I would shoot him show ideas on Instagram. I would just keep the lines of communication open. We relaunched a live event in January 2022, filmed it, you know, we sliced it, and I sent him a couple of promo videos. And one day he just responded and said, hey, we got to catch up. And I'm like, okay. And so even then, he gave me his phone number, and I reached out a couple times. He didn't answer. Well, if he answered, he'll say, I'll call you back. Never call back. And I was like, I'm not going to call anymore. I'm just going to wait. And then just one day, randomly, he called and was like, hey, you guys still doing the show? And I was like, yeah. And so he was like, I want to watch the last show. I sent him the link to the show that was in January. And he was like, he called me up, and he was like, I like the show. When's your next show? And I was like, it's March. And this was like in February. He was like, I want to be there. I said, say less.
Right.
And so he flew to Charlotte, North Carolina to watch the show, and the rest is history.
Wow. And it just happened, like, yeah, like you said.
It was divine timing, because one of the things I tell people is that had I gotten the opportunity in September 2020, I would not have been ready. Production is expensive, right? And I just thought I was going, you know, they was going to like my show, they was going to pay for everything, and that was not the case. That means that I have to put the money up first, and then they buy it from you. They buy it. And they buy it, they pay for it, but you would have already produced it first. So that way they can see what they're buying. Right, and then they can decide whether they want to buy it or not.
Listen.
So if it had happened any sooner than it did, then I wouldn't have been ready. Right. So it's all about divine timing. If you're getting a no, it's a reason why you're getting a no. And just, you know, just keep working, keep plowing away, and it will. The opportunity will present itself when you're ready.
Listen, we all here for the process. Like, I think that was amazing. When I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, the hard work, the dedication, the consistency, it's happened. It's happened. So when you're on these panels and when you're talking to the men, you know, about relationships and love, what have you found out to have been like the issue in all men?
They're not being heard. A lot of times we as women want what we want, and we just shut off our hearing. We don't hear anything that they're saying. Even from the very beginning, when they tell us, hey, you know, I'm not really looking to be anything serious, but you know, we can date and get to know each other, and we don't hear that. All we heard is we can date and get to know each other. We say he didn't want to be anything serious, and that's why you got to revisit that conversation multiple times to make sure you guys are on the same page. Because otherwise you're going to get caught up in something that you can't get out of. Yeah.
So what advice would you give that male who is in or who is looking for that deserving female, that deserving mate?
What advice would I give him? Be transparent about what you want. Like, don't play games. You know, if that's what you want, then be intentional about relationship. That's important. When you really want to be in healthy relationship, you got to be intentional. You can't play games.
Everything out there.
You got to put everything out there. You can't just play until it come along. No, you got to approach it from the very beginning. This is what I'm looking for, and this is what I'm willing to do to get it. Because if you keep playing, I read this meme on social media not long ago. And it just spoke values because it said if you're looking for something real, then stop wasting time with something that's temporary. And we do that a lot, knowing that that person isn't the one, and we waste our time.
Trying to change people.
Right, and then you end up leaving that situation jaded, you know, rather than just, it's okay to be by yourself,
Right.
enjoy your own company.
So what is next? What is next for Ministry? What is next for Chanel?
So right now we just launched a book tour.
Okay.
Yeah, we have dates set. We've already released about 9 dates, right? 9 dates. And we're adding more cities. We're also going to be featured at the Ultimate Women's Expo next month, right here in Atlanta, where we'll be doing a ministry series at the expo. Yes, so we'll invite panel guests, not as large as you see on TV, but 1 or 2 people just to have a candid conversation. I specifically want to invite the men. It's a women's expo, a man that women want to hear from. So we're working on that now, but that is next month in May 20th and 21st.
Wow. So you guys, make sure you guys tap in. And when it comes to picking these guests, how do you pick who comes on the show? Like
Well, some of the guests, they have relationship things that play out in public that we just know about.
Yes.
And if we have a topic that we feel fit them, then we'll extend the invitation.
Right. Like, y'all, get into these conversations. Like, I'll be like, and it's like, I thought it, but I didn't ask
Right.
it.
Ministry is a place where you say the things that you think but you would never do.
Right.
And I'm one of those type of people just in life, just in my own personal life. I'm that person that's going to say what you thought, but you never would say it. You know, I mean, because I believe in complete transparency. You know, I believe in getting answers to all the questions, even if it's a difficult question.
Right.
One of the things I was writing a book with a gentleman some years back, and I like the gentleman. I'm just sharing a little piece of juice. And I asked, most people would never ask this question, but I was like, hey, why you never like me? One would be like, I ain't asking no man, and I want to know. You want to know? We talk about it all the time.
Right.
So just ask. Just ask. And so I invite men when you can ask those crazy questions that you want answers to. These men have had these similar experiences in their own lives, so they can tell you for real. You know what I'm saying? So I try to invite people who are relatable.
Yeah.
So you can get all the answers to your question. They may not be able to give you an exact answer or speak for that person that you were in relationship with, but there is no situation new under the sun.
Listen, you guys, this has been Second Chance with Johneri'O Scott. Thank you, Chanel, for coming through today. You are amazing. Continue to change lives. You guys, if you haven't checked out Ministry so far, check it out. Chanel, let them know how they can stay tuned to the book, get these links, and just tap in with you.
Okay. Well, you guys can find me on all social media platforms. Chanel at Chanel Nicole Scott on all social media platforms. You can find Ministry at Ministry Live on all social media platforms. You can purchase the book at Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, and comministry.com. You can purchase your copy directly from me if you'd like to do that.
Go directly to her. So she get that coin directly to her. Sure.